Welcome learners. In this session, we're going to understand basic queries that you would have understood while you're trying to use any database. This is just a beginning point wherein I want you to get introduced to database, to SQL and to queries, wherein I have simplified the complex topic for entities, schemas and all the other terminologies into SQL. Again, this video is keeping in mind that you are absolutely a beginner and you have probably never heard of SQL beforehand. This again can be skipped if you have kind of an experience into databases and you have a well-ground knowledge of what are tables, what are schemas, and what are the other terminologies that go into SQL database. If you're not, then stay tuned and keep learning into this session.
Let me now introduce you to some of the common and most popularly used terminologies that go behind creating a database. First, let's understand what's a table. A table is used for storing data in columns. For example, I can have a student table in which I would want to have the student name followed by his branch, followed by the year in which the student would be studying, followed by the specialization, and primarily a student ID. So basically what we are trying to define is the data format. Hence, this is one particular thing that is very much required into your database. Secondly, when it comes to creating your database, let's understand this with the help of a very simple example. Let's imagine this is the premises of a very big institution. So let me put this as a study institution. The study institution has got multiple buildings. This is the MBBS degree building. Over here, this is the management building, followed by over here the engineering as well as masters in technology premises. So what do you notice is this entire building which we have over here, or in fact the entire diagram, is called as schema. Now in each of the building there is going to be these students only studying, but they have got their own specialization to be achieved. For example, someone who's trying to pursue doctorate is going to go to MBBS. Someone who wants to be into the management field like an MBA would walk into this premises. People like us who would be into engineering and technology, or let's say into any technical field, would walk into this kind of a building. So basically this entire big premise which comprises of these three buildings are now encapsulated within a schema. Hence you have this entity, or you can say a database, which uses these three complexes in order to understand which kind of academic degree the student is pursuing. Now Second thing is the table schema. Schema refers to what are the different data types that are going to be stored inside the table. For example, when it comes to ID, this is going to be an integer data type. When it comes to name, this would be string. Now, there would be not any student who has got numbers into his name. This is going to be an exception considering Elon Musk's kid who has got weird characters and even numbers into his name. Under normal circumstances, any parent would not do it. Followed by branch. Again, it's a name. This is going to be a string. Now here, this is going to be an integer, as because you can be belonging to year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 simple numbers. Followed by specialization. Now over here, I can try microbiology as a specialization, in which MBBS is also one of the core mediums of study. So let's say in specialization, we can put numbers, we can put characters, we can put special characters like this comma, etc, etc. So here what we are trying to see is how a schema is going to define what is going to go inside the data of a table. Now I'm going to use a new software, and that is going to be something called as DB browser for SQLite. This is a very small software. If I were to show to you its size, I'll click on this download, and 19.5 MB is the entire size of this DB browser. So basically, this is only for practicing your SQL queries, wherein you can try running them and then understand how SQL works before I jump into NoSQL. I've completed with the installation, and now let's try understanding the simple thing with the help of our database. So let's imagine this big chunk of box we're going to create, that's the database. So here I'm going to call institution database, and more upon here we have student details table. So like I have highlighted over here, let me put the exact same table wherein the first field is going to be student ID. Let me mark it as not null, primary key, and auto increment. What are these exactly? I'm going to talk about in more details shortly. Followed by student name. I'll put this as name, and this is going to be text. Branch, again it's going to be text. Here this is going to be numeric. That's because we would not want to insert any text inside the year, and let me mark them as not null. Followed by specialization, and over here I'll mark this as text. Do you notice this entire string got composed on its own? Well, that is the benefit of we using DB browser. So it will write the query for us. But wait, in NoSQL, are we going to do the steps? No. But this are steps which are important to people who have absolutely no idea of what a database or what is a table, or in fact SQL is completely unknown to them. Let me click on OK, and what I notice is the student details table getting created. When I hover over on browse data, I can see all the columns that would be there, and if I click on the plus symbol, it gives me the first row on which I can add some details. Now, what I'll try and do is slightly space out the columns. Now, if you would notice, specialization, I had marked it as null. Basically, the NN column was not checked. Hence, by default, the specialization is null. On the other hand, let's see, I'll put over here Tushar Bharat, and this guy belongs to the electronics engineering branch. He is presently in the first year of his campus and his specialization is engineering. In fact, I should reverse that. Over here I'll set the branch to engineering and I'll set the specialization to electronics engineering. Now, next what I'll try and do is click on the plus symbol thrice. 1, 2, 3. If you would notice, this column got automatically incremented. Well, that kind of signifies what is going to be the data, that is, this data will automatically increment depending upon the last ID. So let's say I'll put over here Sant Prasad Vishwakarma. He is pursuing medical, presently in the second year, and he is going to be a dentist. Followed by, let's see, Suraj Bhanushali, who is again pursuing medical. He is in the year 5 and he is going to be an MBBS doctor. Then we have Krishna Mehta, who is again pursuing medical, is into the third year and she is trying to do oncology. Now, what I'll try and do is go to the SQL tab and show to you how we can display the entire data that has been there in this table using a query. So I'll put select star from student details and then I'll click on this execute all button. What do you notice? The entire table just got populated. Well, over here I can set up some filters. Let's say I'll put branch as medical and then try to run the code. Did you notice the row number 1, which was having data for engineering, is now no longer being displayed? Well, this is how you can write queries and also put filters on them. What is select star and the meaning of star? Well, over here I can mention either to get all columns from the table or I can have designated columns from the table. Let's say I require just the student ID and student name of all the students who are into medical field. In this case, when I run my query, you noticed that the other columns which we have not listed down here got basically removed, and hence this kind of helps for filtering according even the columns and not having all the columns to get displayed. Next, what I'll try and do is over here, I want your attention to be this not null. Let's see. When I go over here, this branch field is something which cannot be null. Hence, if I click on the plus symbol, put over here Manu Deshmukh. Then over here, I'll put his branch as law. He is into second year and his specialization is corporate law. In this, let's say when I try to make the branch as set to null, you get an error. Basically, what does the error say? It says that the branch cannot be set to the selection to null because it has a not null constraint. Hence, if we try to add any null data, it won't get accepted. Now, throughout my demonstration, what am I showing to you is how we can add details into the table. But I'm kind of using GUI. Can't I use queries of this sort to insert data? Well, yes, we can do so. Let's try inserting into student details and I'll put values. Now, first is I know that the student ID column, but again it's going to get auto incremented. Hence, I'll not even bother to insert that data and straight away start with the name. Over here, I'll put Uday Bhosle, who's going to pursue gymnastics, is in the year 3 and his specialization is body weight workout. I'll try to hit this button and it says it has got 5 columns but 4 were supplied. Let me check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, over here we decided that there shouldn't be student ID, but still the query is demanding, or in fact it is kind of saying that we need to have all the 5 columns. Well, what I'm going to do is now mention the column names as first name, branch, year and specialization. I'll put name, branch, year and specialization. Let's try doing it once again. And this time you see that one row got affected, and if I go to browse data, this details got inserted into my table. Well, let's try to violate the principles and insert a null. Well, it says the same thing, that the constraints got failed and we cannot insert null. The entire point of showing you all of this was how we can have the select query which gives us the data, how we can create a table and get you to the basic common functionalities that could be there inside a table. Now, in the next session, I'm going to do a bit more depth of the queries, and for that we'll be understanding how we can understand different type of schemas that could be there inside SQLite.
Hopefully the examples which were being given in the session were very layman and you did not find to be boring. Well, that was keeping in mind that you might be an absolute beginner, or someone who's watching the video might be an absolute beginner. With this, we come to a conclusion in the present session wherein I had the entire introduction to SQLite. In the next session, we're going to talk about filtering data, but with a lot of keywords that goes into SQLite. So stay tuned and keep learning with open minds.